He promised to love her forever, then vanished on her birthday. Weeks later, she confessed to shooting him 10 times, but the real truth is far darker than anyone expected. Everyone in the quiet town of Ridgewood believed Daniel Hayes was the kind of man people only read about in love stories. He was polite, confident, and always knew the right thing to say. Whether he was helping a neighbor fix a broken fence or bringing flowers home for no reason at all, Daniel had built a reputation as someone dependable, someone kind. But the person who trusted him most was Lila Monroe. To Lila, Daniel wasn't just perfect, he was everything. They met 3 years earlier at a small coffee shop near her workplace. Lila had been reading behind the counter when Daniel walked in, smiled, and started a conversation about the book she was holding. That simple moment turned into long walks, late-night talks, and eventually a relationship that felt unbreakable. Daniel often made promises that sounded almost too perfect. "I'll love you for life," he would say, looking directly into her eyes. "No matter what happens." Lila believed every word. Their life together was peaceful. Daniel ran a growing construction business, while Lila worked at a cozy bookstore filled with old wooden shelves and the smell of paper and ink. In the evenings, they cooked dinner together, laughed over small things, and talked about the future, marriage, a bigger house, maybe even children. As Lila's 28th birthday approached, Daniel's behavior changed slightly. He became more secretive, but in a way that felt exciting, not suspicious. Whenever she asked what he was planning, he would just smile. "Trust me," he said one night. "This birthday, you'll never forget it." Lila's heart raced every time he said that. She was sure he was going to propose. Everything pointed to it, the timing, the mood, the way he looked at her lately, like he was holding back a big secret. The night before her birthday, they had dinner together at home. It was simple, but Daniel seemed distracted. He checked his phone more than usual, and at one point, he stepped outside to take a call. When he came back, his smile returned, but something felt slightly off. Lila noticed it, but she pushed the feeling aside. She didn't want to ruin the moment. That night, Daniel held her close and whispered again, "Tomorrow changes everything." Lila fell asleep with a smile on her face, dreaming of rings, promises, and a future she thought was certain. But when she woke up the next morning, Daniel was gone. No note. No message. No sign he had ever planned to come back. At first, Lila tried to stay calm. She told herself Daniel's disappearance was part of the surprise. Maybe he had left early to prepare something special. Maybe he wanted her to worry just a little, just enough to make the moment more dramatic when he returned. But as the hours passed, that hope began to fade. She called his phone again and again. It was off. She checked his closet, most of his clothes were still there. His favorite watch sat on the dresser. His car was parked outside exactly where he had left it the night before. Nothing made sense. By the afternoon, Lila's hands were shaking. She called his friends, his co-workers, anyone who might have heard from him. No one had. That evening, the excitement of her birthday had completely turned into dread. The house felt too quiet. Every small sound made her heart jump. By midnight, Lila was sitting on the living room floor, staring at her phone, hoping it would ring. It never did. The next morning, she went to the police. Detective Aaron Cole listened carefully as Lila explained everything, Daniel's promise, his strange behavior, and the way he had vanished without a trace. At first glance, it looked like a standard missing person case. But as officers searched the house, small details began to stand out. Daniel's wallet was still in the kitchen drawer. His keys were hanging on the hook near the door. Even his business phone, something he never went anywhere without, was left behind on the table. People don't just walk away from their lives like this, Detective Cole said quietly to his partner. Meanwhile, Lila struggled to keep herself together. She repeated the same sentence over and over. He wouldn't leave me. He loves me. Something happened to him. But during questioning, detectives noticed tiny cracks in her story. At one point, she said Daniel had seemed completely normal the night before. Later, she mentioned he had been distant and distracted. The difference was small, but it was enough. As the investigation deepened, detectives spoke to Daniel's friends and business contacts. What they heard changed everything. He wasn't perfect, one coworker admitted. He had problems, more than people knew. There were whispers of financial trouble. Missed payments. Arguments behind closed doors. And then came something more troubling. A friend revealed that Daniel might have been seeing someone else. When detectives brought this information to Lila, her reaction was immediate and intense. "That's not true," she said quickly. Too quickly. Her voice shook, but not just with sadness. There was something else beneath it. Something closer to anger. At that moment, the case shifted. Daniel Hayes was no longer just a missing man. And Lila Monroe was no longer just a grieving girlfriend. Now, she was someone the police couldn't ignore. For nearly 3 weeks, Ridgewood lived under a cloud of uncertainty. Search teams combed through nearby woods, abandoned buildings, and empty roads. Flyers with Daniel's face were taped to street poles and shop windows. His smile, once comforting, now felt haunting. Lila stayed mostly at home, surrounded by silence and questions she couldn't answer. Detective Aaron Cole, however, refused to let the case go cold. "There's always something," he told his team. "People don't just disappear. Not like this." Then, on a cold morning just outside the edge of town, everything changed. A local hunter, moving through a dense wooded area, noticed something unusual, a patch of disturbed soil near a cluster of trees. Curious, he stepped closer. What he found made him call the police immediately. Buried beneath a thin layer of dirt was a body. It didn't take long for investigators to confirm the identity. It was Daniel Hayes. The discovery sent shockwaves through Ridgewood. But what disturbed investigators even more was the condition of the body. Daniel hadn't just been killed. He had been shot 10 times. The number alone told a story. This wasn't panic. This wasn't a single moment of fear. This was anger. Controlled, repeated, deliberate. Detective Cole stood silently at the scene, staring at the evidence being carefully collected. "Whoever did this," he said quietly, "knew him." The focus quickly returned to Lila. She was brought in again, this time not as a witness, but as a suspect. The interrogation room felt smaller than before. The air was heavier. At first, Lila stuck to her original story. She insisted she didn't know what had happened. She cried, she shook, she looked exhausted. But the evidence was mounting. Phone records placed her near the wooded area the night Daniel disappeared. Neighbors reported hearing raised voices coming from the house that same night. Detective Cole leaned forward, his voice calm but firm. "Lila, we found him." The words hung in the air. For a moment, she didn't react. Then her expression changed. The tears stopped. Her breathing slowed. And something inside her seemed to break, not into sadness, but into something colder. "You don't understand," she said softly. Detective Cole didn't respond. He simply waited. Seconds passed. Then minutes. Finally, Lila looked up, her eyes no longer filled with fear, but with something heavier. Something like truth. "Yes," she said. "I shot him." The room fell silent. But it wasn't over. Because what came next would change the entire story. He wasn't who you think he was, Lila continued, her voice steady now. None of you knew him. Detective Cole studied her carefully. For the first time since the case began, Lila Monroe didn't look like a victim. She looked like someone ready to tell a story no one expected. The room felt colder as Lila began to speak. Her voice was calm now, almost too calm. The fear and confusion she had shown before were gone, replaced by something steady and controlled. You all think he was perfect, she said, looking directly at Detective Cole. But you didn't live with him. She took a slow breath before continuing. It started a few days before my birthday. Lila explained that she had been cleaning the house when Daniel's phone lit up on the table. Normally, she would never touch it. He valued privacy, and she respected that. But something about the message caught her eye. A name she didn't recognize. At first, she ignored it. But when more messages came, one after another, curiosity turned into unease. Finally, she opened them. What she saw shattered everything she believed. The messages were intimate. Personal. Plans being made. Promises being exchanged, the same kind Daniel used to make to her. I'll be free soon, one message read. Just wait a little longer. Lila's hands trembled as she read each word. Her chest felt tight, like she couldn't breathe. When Daniel came home that evening, she confronted him immediately. I know, she told him, holding up the phone. Who is she? For a moment, Daniel said nothing. Then, he laughed. Not nervously. Not in denial. Coldly. He's not real, Lila said quickly, correcting herself. That's what I thought you'd say. But you didn't even try to lie. According to Lila, Daniel didn't deny the messages. Instead, he leaned back like it didn't matter. You weren't supposed to see that yet, he said. Those words confused her. Yet, she asked. That's when everything changed. Daniel told her he had been planning to leave. Not just her, but everything. His business, his life in Ridgewood, all of it. You were just part of the picture, he said. Something that made things easier. Lila's voice shook as she repeated his words. He called me convenient. The argument grew louder. Emotions spilled out, anger, betrayal, disbelief. Lila accused him of lying for years. Daniel didn't argue. Instead, he became colder. Detached. He told her he was leaving the next day, on her birthday. I thought it would be memorable, he said with a faint smile. Those words cut deeper than anything else. I gave him everything, Lila whispered. And he turned it into a joke. Detective Cole watched her closely. And the gun? He asked. Lila nodded slowly. It was in the drawer. We kept it for protection. She paused, her eyes distant now. I didn't plan to use it, she said. I just needed him to stop talking. But Daniel didn't stop. He stepped closer. Still smiling. Still talking. And that's when she trailed off. Her hands tightened. I pulled the trigger. She swallowed hard. Once should have been enough. But it wasn't. Because in that moment, something inside her had already gone too far. By the time Lila finished her confession, the case seemed almost complete. A broken relationship. A shocking betrayal. A moment of uncontrollable rage. To many, it looked like a clear crime of passion. But Detective Aaron Cole wasn't convinced. Something still didn't feel right. Lila's story explained the shooting, but not everything else. Why had she fired 10 times? Why go beyond fear or self-defense? And more importantly, why had she taken the time to hide the body so carefully? People who snap don't usually think that far ahead. After the interrogation, Cole ordered a deeper investigation into Daniel's life. Dig into everything, he told his team. Bank records, calls, emails, I want to know who he really was. What they found added a new layer to the case. Daniel's finances were a mess. At first glance, his construction business seemed successful. But behind the scenes, money was missing. Accounts didn't match. Payments had been delayed or never made. Then came the bigger discovery. Several large transfers had been made in the weeks leading up to his disappearance, moved into accounts that didn't belong to him. Fake names. Fake identities. Daniel Hayes hadn't just been planning to leave Lila. He had been planning to disappear completely. Detectives uncovered documents suggesting he was preparing a new identity. There were emails about travel, hidden purchases, even instructions on how to start over without being traced. And the messages Lila had found? They weren't from another woman at all. They were part of the plan. Daniel had created the illusion of a relationship, someone waiting for him somewhere else. It was a cover story, something to make his sudden disappearance look believable. A clean break. A new life. And Lila? She was never meant to follow him. She was part of the exit, Detective Cole said. Not part of the future. The final piece came from phone records. On the night Daniel died, his phone received a call from an unregistered number linked to one of the fake accounts. It confirmed everything. He was about to leave. But he never got the chance. Back in the courtroom, the truth unfolded slowly. Lila's defense argued that she had been manipulated, emotionally broken by years of lies and control. They described her as someone pushed beyond her limits. The prosecution saw it differently. They pointed to the 10 gunshots. The effort to bury the body. The time she had taken before telling the truth. This was not just anger, the prosecutor said. This was a decision. After days of testimony, the verdict came. Guilty. Lila Monroe was sentenced to 25 years in prison. As she stood in the courtroom, she showed no emotion. No tears. No regret. Just silence. To this day, the people of Ridgewood remain divided. Some believe Lila was a victim who lost everything in one devastating moment. Others believe she crossed a line she could never return from. But everyone agrees on one thing. Daniel Hayes' final promise was the cruelest lie of all. And Lila's birthday became the day everything ended.